Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we wrap up, for now, our retrospective on Godzilla with the old school Godzilla movie, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, editor of this summer's Castle of Horror anthology, which you can get. It is out. I just had a friend take them to a conference and sell like 90% of the ones that she brought with her to her booth, which was sweet. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also in Austin, writer of the long-running underground comic series Halloween Man, winner of the 2018 Best of Austin Award from the Austin Chronicle, Mr. Drew Edwards. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello, Julia.
Hello, Julia.
Hello. Oh gosh, it's so great to be together to talk about Godzilla once again. This has been the Godzilla show for like 6 weeks, and we have gone forward and back. We've done we've done the newest Godzilla and all the way back to some of the very earliest, and here we are coming towards the end of a certain period of Godzilla. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla is a 1974 Japanese kaiju film directed by Jun Fukuda, produced and distributed by Toho. It is the 14th film in the Godzilla franchise, features the fictional monster characters Godzilla, Anguirus, King Caesar, and King Caesar. I don't know how to say this. King Caesar, I want to say, along with
That's
the
not how
mecha
they say it.
character. They say King Caesar, which is cool, actually. And along with the mecha character Mechagodzilla. This is the first appearance of Mechagodzilla. The film marks first appearance of both of those, King Caesar and Mechagodzilla, in this franchise, because they will both show up again. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was released theatrically in Japan in March of 1974, and then it did come out in the United States in 1977 under the title Godzilla vs. the Bionic Monster, and also Godzilla vs. the Cosmic Monster. Bionic Monster actually makes some sense here. Cosmic Monster seems like the only thing that does not apply to this very, very varied and unusual film. Okay, let's get our opening thoughts. And also, it's really helpful that this is, with this being the end of our Godzilla retrospective for now, it's helpful, I think, that we start with Tony, who I think is the person who brought us to the Godzilla franchise right now. And I know there's no competition, but I always want to throw, because I always feel bad about that, because I know that Drew's a huge Godzilla fan, but I know that Tony's driven around with
bow before I much like Rodan bows before Godzilla in the new film. I do bow before Tony's Godzilla fandom. I do. But
it's tough because Drew, you literally have Godzilla inked on your arm.
I enjoy Godzilla movies a lot.
Yeah,
but
and Tony's driven around with a little Godzilla on his dash for as long as I've known him, which is a long time.
That Godzilla is older than some of my coworkers. Sadly, to my chagrin, that's the truth. I've had this Godzilla in every car I've had since '95.
Don't those moments just strike you as really weird? Is when you meet a coworker and you go, I have books older than you, and then you think, Jesus Christ, I have a marriage older than you. Actually, come to think of it, yes. Okay, so let's go.
Another way of saying that, Jason, is that you could be their father.
Yes. Yeah, but that's a creepy thing to say to like everybody you run into. Hi there, I could be your father.
Yeah. You say it that way.
Well, don't.
Normal humans would say something like, "Oh my gosh, I could be your father." So don't even. Not, I could be your daddy, baby.
None of us
sounds like you're sneaking up behind people.
And then you put your hands on their shoulders and give a little shoulder rub. Like
now you made it weird.
Oh, that made it weird. Okay. Sure.
Oh man. Okay. Tony. We'll go with Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. Tony, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, 1974. I think this is rearing towards the end of Godzilla for a while.
Yeah,
in that period.
Godzilla is the
last
one, right?
Lay it on us. What are your thoughts?
I like this movie. It's pretty crazy. Again, we have aliens who their plan is a little bit convoluted as
Yeah.
far as what they're trying to accomplish. But I like this iteration of Godzilla as well. I like all of his I like this Mechagodzilla. I like this Godzilla as well. But Mechagodzilla, he's kind of pot bellied, which is I think
Yeah, that's true.
like if you're gonna build a robot and you're like, well, he's somehow packed on a few pounds.
Probably a
I'm guessing
balance
it's to
thing. They're probably
store.
like, oh, we found that he fell over all the time if we didn't add some weight to the middle.
Well, it could be to store all of his,
All of
you
his
know,
weapons.
stuff. But
Yeah.
in general, like the newer Mechagodzillas are way more like Godzilla. They look more like Godzilla. They're more svelte. And but I like this one. I like his crazy shield. He's got some crazy weapons. He's also really formidable. Like he gives Godzilla runs for his money, makes him bleed. It's pretty traumatic. The spy stuff is kind of interesting, and there's like some folklore. It's a really mixed bag movie. They decided to just kind of just pull whatever they thought they might want out of it. But I like this iteration, and I like these crazy aliens and such. It's still fun to me. It was unfortunate that the only Japanese edition I could find, which I didn't own for some reason, was on a Blu-ray, a DVD from a while back, and people want way too much money. Scalpers on eBay, or I wouldn't. They're not scalpers, but they definitely speculators on how much a DVD is worth. So I did watch. I could only get the dub, no commentary. So which made me really happy that I ordered the Criterion box set. October 29th can't come fast enough.
Oh, that's when the new box set comes.
Yeah, and on Criterion it's actually cheaper than Amazon last time I checked, which is cool. So
Very
if you
cool.
order directly from their site. But yeah, so I'm anxiously awaiting seeing this in Japanese. I've seen it somewhere before, like once or twice, but it was a dub only this time, and the dub's pretty good. But I don't know. I wish Classic Media released Terror of Mechagodzilla, and I think there was a commentary if I remember correctly. So
Yeah.
I guess they couldn't get the rights to this one. So those Classic Media DVDs were great up until this Criterion release. So if you
mentioned Terror of Mechagodzilla, and we should, after we get everybody's opening thoughts, I want to like briefly mention just where this fits in the cycle, because Terror of Mechagodzilla comes next. Well, cool. All right, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. I mean that's I just like the movie. I'm anxious to talk about it.
Julia, do you have any thoughts to add to that to kick us off?
Sure. So I'm reading the IMDb. Okay, so a couple things. One is apparently there's like a different names, like you were saying, King Caesar or whatever it is. I'm also seeing King Shiza. Is that the same? Or yeah, Shiza.
That's
is
the
that
same thing. Yep.
Same thing.
Yep.
Okay. Well, anyway, so there's two different things. So we were talking about whether before this we started recording whether King Shiza was more like a lion or dog or what. Apparently, he's a lion dog because I'm reading on the IMDb and it's like the guardian monster King Shiza is based on actual Shiza lion dog guardian statues in Okinawa. And then this other piece that right before that on IMDb says that that some critics have pointed out that the historical context behind this plot is there has been tension between Japan and the island of Okinawa because the island of Okinawa was the home of American military bases that brought the threat of Cold War to the island. So with the aliens controlling Mechagodzilla representing the outside invading force, Godzilla representing Japan, and the mythical King Caesar or Shiza standing in for Okinawa, the film is supposed to be proposing cooperation between the two nations standing together against a common adversary, which I think it makes it more interesting, more substantive, because I think watching the film, you're like, okay, well, that monster's kind of cute, that effect's kind of neat, those aliens are super weird, what the hell is with the reactions of the humans with the non-reactions of the humans to people turning into ape creatures, and they don't even seem to know. It's almost like I feel like they added that after the fact, and nobody like in the film knows about it because nobody reacts to the fact that when somebody gets injured of the aliens, they turn into these weird ape creatures, and nobody seems to nobody mentions it. I don't know, but anyway, so super weird film. I didn't really have a lot of feelings about it either way, but this is an interesting context when I'm looking at this political kind of metaphor or whatever. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it because I think I don't think I put that much thought into it as I was watching it. So maybe hearing Tony and Drew and Jason say things will make me have more thoughts.
Drew, is this your first time watching this film, or are you returning to it?
No, I've seen
How
this movie.
how could you suggest such a thing, Jason?
I'm pretty certain I've never seen this movie before. So please continue. Yeah.
For what it is, for what it's worth, I do actually prefer Terror of Mechagodzilla because it's a little weird. Not weird, well, they're both weird. It's a little darker, I guess, in tone than this.
I'm with you.
But I like this movie a lot. The spy stuff, that we've seen throughout a lot of the other Godzilla movies is continued here. So it does have that sort of vintage James Bond center. The alien invasion plot, if you look at it as an adult, when I first saw this movie, I was a child. If you look at it as adult, it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Like why build a robot Godzilla? Are they trying to frame Godzilla?
Oh, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But oh, look, he's a Godzilla. But he's not. Look, Godzilla's bad. He's crushing things. Like no one's gonna argue.
Yeah.
Wait. No, but I mean, we've seen that with Superman. We've seen it with all kinds of things where people go, "Oh, he's bad now," and that's that. And so, yeah,
Godzilla in the past has trampled.
Yeah, right.
His very first appearance,
he wasn't an angel.
He likes Tokyo Blaze. So, Mechagodzilla himself is a great addition to this franchise, and I don't think anybody could argue that. I also like the weird sort of Planet of the Apes inspired design of the aliens, and I think occasionally they're like super, particularly the part where like the one enemy like spy alien has like half of a human face and half of a gorilla face or something like extremely creepy about that. And I also like how this movie, like a lot of these later Godzilla movies, even though it's because I love things that have contradictory tones, and this movie is subsequently childish, but then it's like occasionally very grisly to the point as Tony already talks about, like there's some Hammer horror style arterial spray when Godzilla gets cut at one point in this movie. So like all those crazy elements come together into a very watchable movie. King Caesar is a cool sidekick for Godzilla, and it's also cool seeing Anguirus again, although who also gets brutalized.
Yes.
Oh my God,
Jesus God. I felt so
horrible.
sad for
when Mechagodzilla comes on the scene, it's so crazy to see his like how he's supposed to be bad, quote unquote bad Godzilla, and all the suit acting where he pounds things with his hands and acts like super arrogant and has all of this like weird Godzilla swagger. All that suit acting stuff is amazing because he's
it's wonderful.
And the way
don't you wish that some of that suit acting would happen in these new Godzilla movies? Like the new Godzilla never like throws his arms in the air and then like pumps them, like just that's sort of
all
like
kinds of great stuff. But in the beginning, he's a super like I'm gonna pound this building, and he has all of his swagger, and it's just so good.
Godzilla has so much personality in these movies.
And when we talk about Mechagodzilla, I have more because the Mechagodzilla King Caesar fight, where he's actually Mechagodzilla, there's some great stuff in there too.
Drew, did you have anything else you wanted to add in the in your opening thoughts?
You know what? I think I'm good. Let's just keep this monster train rolling.
So here's this is my only thought. In lieu of my opening thoughts, I just wanted to mention where this movie fits into the whole universe. So basically, the Wikizilla, which can be super useful in like looking up what the heck things are in the Godzilla universe, they define this period that starts with the original Godzilla and wraps up with Terror of Mechagodzilla 1975. This is the Showa period, but it's actually got 3 periods within it. So you got your original 54 and 55. That's Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again, which come back to back, bam, bam. All right. Then there's a long like emptiness of like 7 years where nothing happens, and then King Kong versus Godzilla happens in 1962, and that's such a big hit that from then on it is bam, bam, bam. There's basically there's one movie every half year to year. I mean, they come very quickly. Just a bunch of Godzilla movies, and that's the revival period. And then with Destroy All Monsters in 1968, that kicks off this last period of 7 films where Godzilla is a straight up superhero. And that's All Monsters Attack, Hedorah, Gigan, Megalon, Mechagodzilla, and Terror of Mechagodzilla. And that gets you to, and Terror of Mechagodzilla is 1975, and that's when it all comes to an end. And it'll be dormant until the one that we watched last week happens, which is Return of Godzilla. So, I mean, that's a long haul, 54 to 75. That's 21 years of Godzilla movies. And it's very, and you can both see the ease of it and also what has gotten stale, like what they really do need to worry about rebooting at this point in this movie, because certainly they've gotten into some ruts. I think the spy stuff, again, totally fun, but by this time it's 1974. I think that stuff is like, we're ready to lose the spy stuff. And so let's start with it. This movie begins on Okinawa, as Julia mentions, and there's a people called the Azumi, and we meet an Azumi priestess and her cane-walking ancient grandfather, who bring to us visions of monster destruction. And let me just point out that this old grandfather is like the guy in Kill Bill. Basically, he is not nearly so old. He's a guy who seems to be maybe in his 30s, who is wearing like a long white beard and a white wig and is walking with a cane. It's kind of delightful. And they are and the priestess is having visions that there's going to be great monster destruction, and she has a prophecy. I'm going to read the prophecy here. You guys can help me understand what it means. But the prophecy says, when a black mountain appears above the clouds, a huge monster will arise to destroy the world. But then when the red moon sets and the sun rises in the west, 2 more shall appear to save humanity. So, the priestess has given us the plot of the whole film. So I don't know. I kind of enjoyed this stuff. It's certainly weird. I mean, this is that at this point there's no spy stuff. We're in full on like Indiana Jones territory with there's archaeologists excavating stuff, and there's the priestess giving us ominous prophecies and so forth. Any thoughts here?
No, I mean, it's funny that the ancient prophecies foretold ape aliens.
Yes.
It all comes from ape aliens, but I guess
ancient prophecies don't discriminate.
Exactly. It happened on the Earth, so therefore,
yeah,
they didn't know. It wasn't as clear as when there's ape aliens. Watch out, because there's also a fake Godzilla who's there to frame real Godzilla and be a Mechagodzilla.
There's a certain amount of that.
Caesar.
It feels kind of that when we get to King Caesar in a sec, because that's right now. All right, King Caesar's really cool. We'll talk about him in just a moment. This stuff feels, I don't know, it feels really haphazard, and even I would say slightly lazy to say, well, there's the priestess is cool. She's got visions. That's cool. But it feels so just kind of lazy for her to just describe the things that are going to happen in the movie. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's up to there's the whole, but that happens. I mean, that's a pretty common trope.
I guess it is.
When somebody does something and it's up to the rest of the people in the movie to figure out what that means.
I'm not even saying I'm above using this. I may very well do the same trick, but it does feel really naked here. However, what is cool is that they introduce this god that the Azumi people on Okinawa have, and this god is called King Caesar, and he's a lion or a dog. Hard to say. Tony pointed out.
I just told you it's a lion dog.
Yeah. He's a lion dog. Yes.
As I have stated, when I'm talking about this very thing just the other day online, he can be both a lion and a dog because he is a monster, and monsters are often mixtures of things. Just how a werewolf can be both a wolf and a man, or a centaur can be a man and a horse.
Exactly.
He'd be a lion dog. So
He is a lion dog.
A lion
Exactly.
dog is. I mean, that's not. I mean, well, USA, we don't really have. We have a history
Lion
that
dogs.
goes back. Yeah, but as culturally, like statues, you see stuff like that all the time.
Absolutely.
Lion dog makes
Mhm.
sense. And
Yeah.
they have
Absolutely.
a literal statue in the movie that they're hauling around to try to figure out this whole mystery.
Right. All the business, and this is actually my favorite parts of this movie. Well, this is a favorite part, is that I think this kind of foreshadowing is really pretty cool. Because how disappointed would you be if they spend all this time with this damn statue of this lion dog who is a giant guardian who will come to protect Okinawa at its time of need? If he didn't come back, I would feel so ripped off, like so disappointed if King Caesar, who they keep talking about, did not come back. But right now we don't know. Maybe he won't. There's a plot where some scientists want to take a look at this statue, and they've also been uncovering what they call space titanium in some caves on Okinawa, and there are some spies who want to steal both the space titanium and also the statue of King Caesar.
Right.
And
Also-
while all of that is going on, Anguirus comes to Mount Fuji because Godzilla appears to come out of the ground and start just stomping all over stuff. And Anguirus comes, and Godzilla, when he appears, Tony, when Godzilla appears, there's something different about him. How is Godzilla different when he appears? Just
I mean,
showing up?
mostly it's how he acts. Like, he just has a swagger. Like I said before,
Yeah,
and he's smashing buildings with both hands.
and he
Not
sounds
kinda-
different.
Yeah, he doesn't amble in the same way, perhaps like the first. He's full on at this point the Godzilla we've seen over the past few movies, where he's like monster wrestling and stuff.
Yes.
And he's not the Godzilla in '85, where he's more of a gigantic beast that just kind of smashes through things. This Godzilla is full on, has attitude.
Right.
And he's smashing things with his hands, and he's looking at it like, and has all this like great suit acting stuff that shows that he's angry
a dick.
about things.
He's a dick Godzilla. I mean, and I was
So
thinking how
Anguirus-
awful. If you were
Yeah.
10 and watching this movie, you'd be like, "Why is Godzilla being so mean?" You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's like when the Grinch steals everything and the kid thinks it's Santa Claus. Like,
You'd
what
be
the
like,
hell?
he's
And
so
Anguirus comes
enraged.
up and is like, "Hey, man, offers him a Snickers or whatever. You should be less angry." In which case, they fight, and then we see a little bit of metal, and we're like, "Oh, look at that!"
Yeah, Anguirus
Well,
tears a patch off of Godzilla's shoulder, and it goes shing. It like shines.
What I don't quite understand is that they've spent all of this effort to make this fake Godzilla.
Yeah.
And obviously the skin isn't going to hold up, which is kind of weird and not well planned. But
Right.
eventually, because they want to reveal that he's Mechagodzilla, it's not too far into it. Godzilla comes, Godzilla comes up, and then they fight, and then he just kind of destroys the skin, and haha, I'm Mechagodzilla. Like,
Yeah.
the plan to frame Godzilla is very poor.
Is that the whole plan? Is that what this thing is for?
They were planning. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a friend to people, and now he's not. Like, that's obviously not going to work. Godzilla still exists.
Well, it makes sense if the aliens have a plan. Yeah, oftentimes the aliens have a plan to have a giant robot to do a lot of damage. That can make sense.
Right.
So in this case, they seem to have made a big thing that they call Mechagodzilla. And another person just coins the term there and turns out to get it exactly right. He goes, "You might call it a Mechagodzilla." And it's got to be the thing's name because Mechagodzilla himself, a Japanese, I guess, no, he's alien. He's a giant alien monster made of metal, has a little M and G like tattooed on his shoulder.
I know.
Which is weird because that means the space aliens speak
Use English letters
English.
or Arabic letters.
Right, Arabic letters.
It's
Yeah.
even weirder. It's even weirder
because it's a
because
Japanese
it's a
movie.
Japanese movie.
Yes.
See, I don't know. Oh man, I hope that Matt Frank hasn't already done this, and I'm just out of touch. Why is there not a comic or a movie or something where the Planet X and the cockroach guys, I mean, I guess Planet X is Ghidra, but we don't ever see them.
Yeah.
And these aliens, the ape aliens, all get together and form an alien cabal and go, you know what? We've each tried, but I think if we pool our resources, we can come up with something really good. Now, that may mean that they just make mecha versions of everything and really screw it up. Or it could be something really interesting. But I'm not sure why they don't, form a alien agency. Or maybe they would duke it out. Maybe they would just screw each other over. That would be interesting too, though.
Sure.
Like the interplanetary politics of these aliens who all seem to think the Earth, they need it for something, and we're too busy screwing it up in real life. So
you're describing those things in like the Batman comics when occasionally the supervillains get together for some like super plan that they're gonna
or like the Batman movie where it's Riddler and Catwoman and Penguin and
You know what I thought, the little detail about the lead space alien that I just love for whatever reason is the fact that he's got that sort of bruise looking thing on
pretty
his
awesome.
face that, like, I guess that's kind of revealing that he is non-human in nature.
I think it means that he's part of Devo, but he just doesn't have the helmet on.
This actor's name is Goro Mutsumi, and he plays the alien leader. And he's actually pretty great. He's very sort of slick and he seems very calm, even as things seem to be, because these aliens, lots of things go wrong with their plan all the time. Like, I want to get back to what goes wrong with Mechagodzilla after we talk about what happens to Anguirus. So remember, Anguirus is Godzilla's friend, and in fact, one of the main human characters looks up and goes, "Well, why would Godzilla be attacking his friend Anguirus?" So at this point in the series, Godzilla is
really funny considering the fact that Godzilla just beats the shit out of Anguirus and lights him on fire with his atomic breath, and Godzilla raids again. Like,
oh yeah, that's true.
Well, since then they became friends.
Since then they're friends. Yeah, they came to fight Gigan and Megalon, and that's all forgotten. And boy does he abuse Anguirus, because he like rips Anguirus's jaw open so that blood trickles down his neck. And luckily these monsters have like super healing, because Anguirus sort of scuttles away. We don't see him again in this movie, but presumably he's fine, because we know that we'll see him again in other movies. But yes, but what goes wrong? I'm trying to remember how. Oh yeah, well, I guess what goes wrong with Mechagodzilla is that the real Godzilla comes out and is stunned that there's a mechanical version of himself, and he and they fight, and he reveals by burning the skin off of Mechagodzilla that it is a big robot. Underneath.
So I think we need to take a moment to truly appreciate the awesomeness of Mechagodzilla's finger rockets.
Yes.
Quite frankly, I think the like is daffy as the idea of
go ahead and describe all of his weapons if you like.
Not only that, he's got toe missiles.
Yes, he's got missiles in his toes. He's got missiles in his fingers. He's got eye beams.
Lasers.
Does he have a mouth laser? Does he have like a
he has like a mouth laser. He can fly.
Yes.
And he's got a little like hatch that pops down. He can shoot a lightning beam out of his chest.
But he really holds that flying thing for a long. Like that was a surprise, because he goes a long time before he decides to fly. I was like, it seems like that might have been useful earlier.
And he also, let me think, and he has this one, Tony, I think you were going to mention this, where his whole head can spin, and that's what sets off his spinning shield.
Yeah.
That creates friction. That's what's crazy. Oh, ow! Godzilla walks up. When Mechagodzilla does this thing where he just creates this spinning cylindrical shield around himself, Godzilla walks up and it burns his hand to like put his hand on the shield. But presumably Mechagodzilla can't be fighting while he's got that shield. I would presume, because it seems to be pretty effective that way. But To your point, Tony, about like what the heck was their plan, dressing him up like Godzilla, this may not be their plan. It could very well be that they intended to sneak him somewhere and then he would reveal himself. Because obviously, the things like the finger rockets weren't going to be useful while he looked like Godzilla, you
Right.
know? Because Godzilla
Well,
can't use
again,
finger
they
rockets.
spent a lot of. It seems maybe it was effortless for them. I don't know. I don't know what the cost overruns for Godzilla skin
I would
are.
think the skin is a big deal, you know?
Yeah. So
And they sure give up on it quickly.
exactly, that's exactly my point. Like they've had a plan, and that quickly is like, you know what? He's so much cooler. It's just
Yeah.
let's let him rampage.
Now that the other Godzilla's here, let's just ditch this outfit and it's a mecha. Well, and this is not the first one of these, remember, because actually, Mecha King Kong had already appeared in
Right.
King Kong Escapes, which we did an episode on, and that was 1967. So that's like 7 years before this movie. I don't
So
remember if he had weapons though.
So did it just is the reason why Mechagodzilla is a thing Mecha Kong, like, where did they go, oh well, that was too good of an idea not to reuse for Godzilla?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where the first one of these ideas came from. I would love for somebody to like explain to me, where these different, like this big concept of the Mechana version of some major character. I would love to know if there was like first a Frankenstein movie where somebody made a mechanical Frankenstein monster or something, or if it was really Mechanicon, which would blow my mind if that was the first time somebody did this. No, who knows? Does anybody know the first mecha in general? I do not. I'm just asking.
Like in film or in
Yeah,
anime?
the first Japanese mecha character. That's clearly like what we would call a mecha.
I guess it would go back to. Do you count Astro Boy?
Yeah, I was gonna say there was the
That's
kid,
clearly.
Astro Boy, and that's like when was that? The 60s, early 60s? Well,
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
I know I'm wasting everybody's time with this question.
That's Gen 28, which is around also black and white.
I think Astro Boy, which starts in 52.
That's Giant Robo. So
Yeah.
it's a Gen 28 would be the first like large mecha. I'm sure there's probably historical representation, but that's the first in like mass media. Those
Giant Robo starts in 67. So, it may very well be that this
63 is Gigantor.
yeah.
That's Gen
So it may very well be
that
that like the big robot copy
56.
of a super character. I think Mechanicon is super important in that, and
right.
So that's fascinating. It's so weird that this random movie, King Kong Escapes, gives us this idea that's going to stick around and become a super important part of the rest of the Godzilla franchise. So yes, Mechagodzilla.
Giant Robo is like 67, by the way.
Yeah, so it's all happening at more or less the
63,
same time.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Astro Boy.
And I actually saw Johnny Sacco's Giant Robot, which is the English adaptation, around the same time I saw all of these movies as a kid on Monster.
Yeah, no, they're really more or less
all of that
contemporaneous.
Thing. Yeah.
So Godzilla. Let's see. The skin is burnt off. And I'm trying to remember if this is when Godzilla is actually damaged, or I believe that they battle to a truce at this point. And
Right.
Mechagodzilla is damaged, which leads the aliens to need to borrow a human scientist to work on Mechagodzilla, which is again super hilarious that they don't have enough scientists of their own.
We loaned out all our other Mechagodzilla mechanics.
Yes.
Maybe that's it. They're on loan to go fix Mecha King Ghidorah.
Right.
We shoveled them off on the planet X, and so I guess let's find some human scientists.
Yeah, to do science stuff and work on it.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Keisuke and Psycho are lover characters. This is the archaeologist, Psycho, and Keisuke, who is I'm trying to remember. This is this is the brother of the Spelunker. So you have the female archaeologist and the cave guy.
Can I say something real quick
Keisuke.
about that?
Yes.
I am so sick of these films where it's like, oh, you're such a pretty girl. Oh, you're a scientist? How can that be? You're such a pretty girl. And I'm like, okay, we get it. Pretty girls can be scientists. But what about not pretty girls? Can they also be scientists? Like older women or homely women? Are they also able to be scientists? Or do we only accept pretty girls into the male-dominated science world? Anyway, I just had to vent about that.
That is a funny thing.
I mean, in the world of film media, especially at this time period, I think you're justified, but also that's exactly how it's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sick of it though.
You're not wrong. Like nobody, I think only foolish people would disagree.
Yeah,
and, of course. But I mean,
you never have like a.
But Julia, do homely women
70-year-old
really get to wear such mod clothes? Come on.
Yeah,
I think older homely women can also wear mod clothes.
No, I agree.
Yes.
I'm just that in the world of filmmaking of this time. That's not a thing, which is
to
weird.
Julia's point. I mean, the older scientist character is sort of a stock character in these movies, and admittedly, most of these movies were made in the 50s and 60s, and now at this point the 70s. Not exactly the most quote unquote woke of times. But an older female scientist would fit perfectly in the universe of Godzilla.
Or like I say, even if it's not an older one, because maybe they didn't start admitting women into science school until then. However, does she always have to be gorgeous? Like, can't she be like kind of kind of boyish looking or kind of fat? Or I mean, there are not a lot of fat people in Asia. But my point is, they're always beautiful.
My response
and,
to that,
Julia,
is
movies.
Because somebody's fat doesn't mean they're not attractive.
No, but I mean, I'm saying that they don't have to look the same. They always look the same. They're always like cute, petite, perfect looking, adorable women. It's just like diversify. Obviously, they can't diversify ethnically too much because they don't. It's not a super diverse community, but there are different looking people, different color, like haircuts, glasses, I mean, anything that would be various weights. So I'm not saying that not looking like this means you're homely. I'm saying that is one of the kinds of women. So there's older women, there's homely women, there's women of different sizes, there's women of different like haircuts, whatever. I'm just like, it seems like they always look the same, but maybe I'm just
I don't think you're entirely wrong. And I mean, I guess it's just the aesthetic of 60s to 70s era Japanese genre films. The thing I always notice also, talking about like the actresses and the romances in these movies, and the cultural differences. And I know I've talked about this on some of our other episodes about Godzilla, but the relationships are also very chaste. Like, most of the time you don't even see kissing.
Yeah, that's true.
In general, you only see. I haven't seen hundreds of Japanese movies, but I've seen many. A lot of I think it's also over time, Yeah. I mean, I guess you have Bond at the time, but in general, you don't see a lot of that outside of kind of more closer to pink films or art films. You'll see, some of the art films on Criterion, but I think also that's societal as well.
So here are my thoughts.
Of public display of affection in general.
So in the United States, Love or Come Back and movies like that with Doris Day and Rock Hudson, the whole spiel was that Doris Day wasn't going to sleep with a man that she wasn't married to. And she was always considered like the definer of culture. James Bond sleeps with anybody he can convince to sleep with him. And everybody sort of looked at that as, okay, but he's a spy. And remember Nick Adams in Monster Zero. He's sleeping with the reporter.
But that's an exception.
Right,
like,
and she turns out to be a bad guy.
That stands out, though. That relationship stands out because it is a little bit more passionate. Whereas, like, this, like, you might, if you're lucky, get hand holding. Like,
are these two sharing a cabin though? That's my question. So by the way, they're both scientists. They are smuggling a statue, and they decide to smuggle the statue on an awesome cruise ship. Are they sharing a cabin? I literally cannot remember if they have the same cabin or not.
I got the impression that they were, but then wait,
they get attacked by an ape man.
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
I guess I didn't think much of it at the time. I probably should have paid closer attention.
No, I mean, it's not that important a question. I was curious, but they do name this cruise ship, and I'd love to find out what cruise ship it is, because I'd love to know more about it. It's interesting to me what cruise ships looked like in 1974. The Lido deck where people would be playing shuffleboard is pretty much exactly as it would appear on a ship today, except for it's like about one.
It's narrower,
the size.
and it's also, everything is smaller. Like the walls are the rail,
the railings
smaller.
Yeah,
and of course the lawn chairs look like the lawn chairs that from that time, just or whatever. But it's just
they're really on a cruise ship though, which is kind of wild. I think that's pretty cool that they just decide the aliens won't find us if we go on this cruise ship to return to Okinawa. But they're wrong, because there's both aliens and other aliens on this ship, and it turns out they appear to lose the statue because they are being hunted and attacked by an alien who gets blasted in the face and appears to have a half ape face. But he goes over the side and appears to take the statue with him. But it turned out that our hero had faked the aliens and us out, and actually had the statue in a safe all along, which is pretty great. So they return. Yeah, go ahead.
That scene with the guy, I just have to repeat this again. That scene where the guy has like the half gorilla face is so twisted.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well, like I said, the weirdest part to me is that the other guy kind of seems to it's almost like the Men in Black thing where they flash the flashlight. It's like they don't remember that he had that face, because he never mentions it afterwards. True. He chases him around. He seems quite giddy to have tricked the guy, but he never mentions it. It's just so weird.
Maybe it's because like now they're on their like 5th alien invasion. People are a lot more nonchalant in the Godzillaverse.
I guess.
Perhaps.
They are in a world that's like teeming with giant monsters
and aliens.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Create giant.
Yeah, I guess they're just not that impressed
by this time.
I should mention something else about King Caesar, who again is now represented in this statue that they're carrying around. Now, on Okinawa, there really are statues called Shisa statues, and so that's why his name is kind of a double meaning, because they are Shisa statues. There are variations on Chinese guardian statues, which are supposed to be lions. As you guys pointed out, they are lions. And they're originally Chinese, but there's an Okinawan variation of them. And and for whatever reason in the 70s, Westerners assumed Shisa was the same thing as Caesar. And so Toho, who are just completely happy to go along with how much we can screw things up, Toho just went for it, saying, yes, sure, it's King Caesar, but he's named after these Shisa statues. So that's why you'll see it written all kinds of ways, is because of that. So it's kind of cool. He's really based on these lion statues, which I think is groovy. Anyway, they take the statue back to the temple, and at a time when most needed, when once Mechagodzilla is fixed and comes back out to fight Godzilla some more, the priestess who we saw earlier gives her prophecies. The priestess goes out and prays to the mountain that King Caesar is supposed to live in. And it's so funny because when you read old legends of a monster or a creature or a god that lives in the mountain, in my kid brain, I never quite envisioned, like, what the heck? What does it mean? Like, if you were to say that this god lives in the mountain, does he live in a cave in the mountain? Is there like a hidden hideout in the mountain or whatever? These movies go ahead and give you a look at what that means, because when he wakes up, you find out there's sort of a big dog cave, lion cave thing in the mountain itself. And once it takes a long time to wake him up because she has to sing the whole song, but he flies out and he's ready to fight with his.
But But also up until this point, we've seen the like Black Mountain when they're flying. They see a cloud formation that's the Black Mountain.
Yes.
And they discover, oh, how can the sun come up in the west? Oh, it's a mirage.
Yeah.
And so all the bits we're seeing kind of played out along, and that's actually kind of cool.
It
as
is.
they unravel
That
things.
is.
And then they realize, oh well, this is happening now. And the priestess sings an awesome song to help summon King Caesar.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That the sun rising in the west. The funny thing is the television series MASH also used that. It wasn't a prophecy, but it was a misunderstanding. How somebody looks to the west. Actually, in that case, they flipped it. He looks to the east and he goes, "Gosh, what a beautiful sunset." And Colonel Potter goes, "Well, it would be, except for that the sun sets over there. That's a fire. And so we need to bug out because that's going to be here by the morning." And that was how they introduced the destruction of the 407 7th, was that the sun was setting on the wrong side of the earth. And Potter knew that they were in big trouble. It just blows my mind. It just gives me shivers to think about every time. It was so cool. So yes, anyway, King Caesar leaps into action. This is the silliest thing that I ever spent any time watching, and it's a lot of fun because he is furry, he has big floppy ears, he is a doggish lion, and he fights. He doesn't have a lot of armor. He seems like one of the weakest kaiju I've ever seen, but he's vigorous.
Granted, he's jumping out at a time where there's a creature that is a match for Godzilla, which is no mean feat.
Right, that's true.
Godzilla is pretty tough. Whenever they're fighting, though, I was just happy that as mean as Mechagodzilla is, there's at one point where he's like shoving his fist down King Caesar's mouth.
Yes.
Like, oh man, it's a good thing he isn't also firing his wrist rockets down King Caesar's.
Absolutely.
King Caesar does have some interesting at least one interesting ability, though, is that he can reflect energy beams sent back to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That is true. And Godzilla, what happens? Why does Godzilla looks like he's in real trouble? And then does he attract lightning out of the sky? Is that what happens? And he gets strong again?
He's, I think he is like aware that this is, going to be a tougher fight than normal. So like the whole scene with him like absorbing the energy from the lightning, I think that's supposed to, that he's like charging up for a big fight, which I have a question because I can't think of another instance of this. And maybe Tony has the answer. Is this the first movie where they imply that Godzilla is absorbing energy from something? Because
no, I mean he's powered by nuclear.
Yeah,
energy,
and I know in the Heisei movies they always like make a big business of him like going to what we just saw in Godzilla 1985, where he goes to a nuclear power plant and charges up. But I in this earlier series, I was really racking my brain. Like, did they ever have like the scene where he's getting juiced up from the lightning? I can't think of another scene. Oh wait, there is the scene in Godzilla versus the Sea Monster where they use a lightning rod to give him a boost. So I stand corrected. I just had to say
this one's weirder, and he becomes magnetic. None of it makes a lot of sense. He's never done this before. How he becomes a magnet, and they just think, he's he absorbs some lightning.
That was kind of awesome.
I love how he uses his arms like to pull, like he's like a stage magician.
Now he's like a Jedi, like he's like a Jedi, like lifting lifting the ship out of the water.
To work for his win in this movie, which is why I think I like it.
That's true.
That's true. I mean, it's rough. It's there's a couple of Gamera movies where Gamera really gets it, but this this one, man, he gets so hurt. There's a great scene too where Mechagodzilla's head turns backwards towards King Caesar.
Yes,
and he's threatening both of them. It's like a standoff.
That was
He's
amazing.
gonna shoot, and they even double down. It's almost like a spaghetti western kind of thing, where he aims at Godzilla and he's turned towards King Caesar, and then he puts his foot up on a rock to go, I can also give you these foot missiles, Godzilla. You better watch out. And they have this standoff moment that's really great. And then he really gives it to him. I mean, they're getting knocked around. Godzilla gets hit in the throat a bunch of times and just has this arterial spray.
Yes. Good God. And you know, they're not ganging up
into him.
Well, it's not a wrestling match like in Gigan, where you had two good monsters versus two bad monsters. In this case, you had two good guys, and they are way outmatched by this big nasty missile bearing robot. And I should have mentioned, I'm sorry, helping them on. I said good aliens. They weren't good aliens. They're Interpol agents. So you have the aliens from the black hole, or whatever they're called, the black hole aliens, who are trying to steal the statue because they want to stop the appearance of King Caesar, because they need to be able to lift up, Mechagodzilla. And then you have Interpol agents who are out to stop the aliens. So I can't remember if in the prior movies any good spies were Interpol agents, if that was a thing before. But it's a big thing in this movie that they are Interpol in this movie is like James Bond. It's like MI6. They're really cool. They're all over the place. They're well.
What I love about the spy stuff in this movie is that there's this sci-fi underlayer to it, because they're fighting ape men from outer space.
Yeah. They're the Men in Black in a sense. They're an early version of that. Because Interpol, the real Interpol, doesn't have any time to deal with
aliens and monsters.
Aliens,
that you know of. They aren't going to tell you, Jason.
You just said they're like the Men in Black. How would you even know? They've flashed you with those flights.
The real Interpol. You don't know the real Interpol. And if you did, they would silence you.
Or they would again flash their little
you.
memory wiping light at you.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're right. We've uncovered something. Everybody listening needs to know that I didn't mean anything I said about Interpol, and I'm sure that they...
How do we know you're not part of their disinformation campaign?
You're right.
We don't.
That's funny.
So basically the scientist who helped the aliens prepare Mechagodzilla now feels bad. And so he and the Spelunker break back into the alien stronghold to get themselves captured, but then ultimately to blow stuff up so that they can kind of screw up the aliens' plan. And this is how all of these movies always end, is with the aliens in their stronghold or a ship or whatever it is gets blown up, and that's the end of their invasion. So they get blown up. They turn back into ape people, and meanwhile, Godzilla manages to. Does the destruction of the alien compound cause Mechagodzilla to not work? Because I believe, I'm trying to remember why Mechagodzilla's head comes off. Does it come off does Godzilla rip the head off, or does so Godzilla wins. I was worried for a second. I was trying to remember now if Godzilla deserves this win, or if Mechagodzilla was disrupted by the aliens getting blown up.
Yeah, the alien thing is because he has that pipe made of alien metal, and when you separate the two, they blow up.
He's got
the two, they create the waves, and it's all
it's a pipe grenade.
Weird, this thing being okay, so I'm introducing this pipe. Okay, that's cool. And then later he's got the pipe, and the pipe becomes the catalyst for the destruction of the aliens. It's such a weird, random thing. You'll see this pipe later. It'll be very important. Not just for smoking.
For all the unrealistic stuff in this movie, which is considerable, I do love the fact that they still treat Mechagodzilla like a machine that if it's damaged, it takes time to repair. And that's something that even carries over into the sequel to this. Is that Mechagodzilla, once damaged, he's not, that's the way he is inferior to the real Godzilla, is like Godzilla as a living being can have like a will to fight beyond, damage done to his body or whatever. Like he can push himself further. But Mechagodzilla is limited as a machine, and if he gets damaged enough, he does have to be repaired. And I don't know. I just think it's a nice little bit of reality in
it is. That is really cool.
Bonkers.
It is neat when they think that way. It's sort of like in Westerns when suddenly they introduce logistics and you really appreciate it. Like in The Searchers, when there's a lot of logistics in The Searchers that I'd never seen in any other Westerns, where they were like, we're not going to be able to ride more than a certain number of hours, and we're going to have to rest because you and I might need to rest, but the horses are going to need to rest. If they ride more than that, they're going to kill the horses. If they kill the horses, they got to get more horses. And that, so you're right. You're going to attack with Mechagodzilla, but if Mechagodzilla gets damaged, you're going to have to get a scientist. If you can't get a scientist, you can't fix Mechagodzilla. That's pretty great. Yes, Godzilla rips Mechagodzilla's head off, and they're not going to fix him because their base blows up because of the pipe grenade that that's our friends, the scientists, have. We spend a lot of time with them unlocking their own handcuffs. They do get away. And
weird handcuffs, by the way. That was really odd.
Yeah.
Like cardboard cuffs with like chain in between them.
But it was cool. How they spend a lot of sweaty time trying to unlock those, and that was neat. And then Godzilla heads back to sea as always, which is always so. There's always something. I get a tear in the eye when I see Godzilla like swimming away, And then
off into the sunset like a cowboy on his horse.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then King Caesar goes back to his little crate because he's got to go to sleep, which is wonderful. This is so cool. And that's just the end. Is we know that both of those heroes can come to our aid again, and I hope that Godzilla goes back to like Monster Island, and Anguirus is like, that better be you there with his,
Yes, I asked a couple of questions.
And Anguirus probably has like a handkerchief tied around his head.
Right. Ask me something only Godzilla would know. Is Minya really yours? Well, actually, yeah. He has to answer stuff like that for Anguirus.
Who is Godzuki? Okay, so
we don't speak about Godzuki, all right?
First rule.
And that's actually his answer. Okay, you're the real Godzilla.
Yes.
I do however, know Minya. Yes, of course.
Oh man.
At one point I would like to get around to doing all the weird Godzilla sequels that take place on tropical islands, including Son of Godzilla.
I want somebody to explain to me that like Godzilla TV series from 1997. I'm completely confused as to what that is. I'm wondering if there are episodes on YouTube.
The animated series based off of the American Godzilla, or the
No, this appears to be a Japanese series of
the Monster Island thing.
Godzilla Island.
Yeah, I've never actually seen an episode of it. I've only heard about it. So
is it bad? Is it good?
I've never.
All right. Well, we'll do some reporting on this and find out. So no problem. All right. So let's get our final thoughts on Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I don't know if we've done it a service, but let's find out. By the way, Godzilla Island is that show, so we're going to find out about that. So it was
I
Tony
remember
Drew
now, but I don't. Oh man, I saw parts of it, and now I have very little recollection. So
it looks like it's probably funny. It's probably intended to be funny. Like
you know what? I will hunt for bootlegs of
like
it.
Seth Green's show, because the characters seem to be played by toys, and I think these are like 3-minute episodes.
Oh,
I will try to hunt and see if you can find copies of this at Anime Fest, because it seems like something that would be in the dealer's room there.
Yeah, it sounds super fun.
I think I have some bits on a VHS.
Hey, if it's funny, it's funny. I mean, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Maybe not. You don't sound enthused.
No. I just had it was one of those things I had forgotten about, and I remember. Yeah, my friend Hero had sent me some bits of it on VHS, but wow, how did I forget this? Yeah,
Yeah, they're
interesting.
3-minute episodes, and the characters are played by toys. I've got to watch this thing. It'd be like
Yeah.
if you and I animated a 3-minute show where we just animated our GI Joe figures walking around
Right.
and talking, which actually, to be honest, sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm surprised I forgot about this though. That's what's weird. I think it's my not lack of enthusiasm, but more of like, oh
Vertigo.
yeah,
No, I know exactly what you mean. Where you're
I
suddenly
had
like,
some of
yeah,
these on
yeah.
tape, and I'd completely forgotten that they were a thing. How
Wow.
weird, huh?
I will watch some of those things. Okay, so final thoughts. It was Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. So Tony, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. What are your thoughts?
I like the movie. I like King Caesar. Like I said, I like this weird pot-bellied badass version of Mechagodzilla. Because I don't even think the newer Mechagodzillas hurt Godzilla in the same way that this one does. They just hurt him emotionally. No, I don't know. You hurt me so badly, Mechagodzilla. Anyway, yeah, I like the movie. I'm sad that this ends our show retrospective. I wish I would have lobbied for Terror of Mechagodzilla so we could close out the era. But anyway, I should have done that.
We'll get back to it. I promise you.
We should totally do that. I really enjoy this movie. I like all the spy stuff. I like all the alien stuff, even if the plot is crazy town. Maybe not as crazy as Gigan and doesn't have the insane wrestling that Megalon has. But yeah, I really enjoy this movie. It's
That is cool.
fun, it's comforting. I wish again that the subtitled version was more readily available, but in October, Criterion's fixing that. So I'll be anxiously awaiting rewatching this for the who knows how many time and watching it subbed. Hopefully with some cool extra features. Because that set looks amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait. All right, Julia, what about you?
Well, I don't love this film. I don't hate this film. I kind of feel like I'm not going to remember that I watched this film, except for then Jason will go, remember it's the one with the guys who when they get injured, they turn into weird green ape creatures? Oh yeah, that one. But so it didn't really leave a huge impression on me. But I didn't not enjoy it. I just kind of felt like it was sort of yeah, I mean, it's just sort of, it didn't leave an impression on me. I guess that's really all I can say about it. But I have enjoyed or listening to you guys because I didn't have a lot to add. It's been interesting to hear, and certainly the Godzilla retrospective has been fun.
Oh,
Thank you, Drew. What about you?
Well, I enjoyed talking about it, even though I don't think I had as much to add about it as I did with our previous film. I do really enjoy it. I think it's a very breezy watch, and I think that obviously Mechagodzilla has gone on to be an iconic foe for Godzilla, and some would argue the only real rival for King Ghidorah in terms of being Godzilla's arch nemesis. And I think that makes this an important movie in the franchise. I do like Terror of Mechagodzilla a little better. I hope we get around to do it. As Tony, I wouldn't worry too much because as next year gives us Godzilla versus Kong, and therefore another excuse to review some Godzilla movies. So
the funny thing is we can like gather up a playlist of all of these and put them in order of in like movie order, and that'll be cool. Anyway, go ahead, continue.
I don't think I have much to add about it. I am sad that that the Godzilla retrospective is over for now, because I think a lot. This has been a rough year for me, both personally, and there's also just a lot of bad things that are going on in the world. But having this excuse to watch a Godzilla movie every week has been kind of a nice excuse to just do something fun for an hour or so. And for that, I've been very grateful that we did this.
Oh, that's wonderful. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to get our endorsements.
So we've had some people request some stuff lately on
Yeah.
Facebook. In particular, I want to say, shout out to John for suggesting Crawl, which was my endorsement a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I would like to do that movie. I will push for a Creatures on the Loose retrospective at some point, but we do have a lot of cool stuff that we've been kicking around, so I don't know if like that will be done until the end of the year. There's also somebody a few weeks back that suggested that we do Stranger Things 3, which would also be fun, but a bigger undertaking. So maybe, but I bear with us because we do have a lot of cool stuff we've been kicking around.
Yeah,
So.
we hear all of those suggestions, and we always bear them in mind.
So we get a lot of messages as well. Hey, how about this? How about that? Your voices don't go unheard. A lot of times we'll have plans internally that, hey, we would like to cover this or that. That doesn't mean that we ignore those. So thank you very much for spending your time to actually suggest things, and we do care about that stuff, so it means a lot to us.
Well said, man. Tony, do you have anything that you would like to recommend?
Oh, I've been so busy preparing for the gig I did yesterday, which was our second Deserts of Mars gig with our new guitarist and it's kind of our comeback, I guess. So I've been mainly doing that at night.
If you want, you can just shout that out. You can tell us.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're hopefully going to be playing a lot more gigs, but we're, trying to finish up this EP, which I think sounds great, even in unmixed form. So hopefully September, October, we'll have this EP out. But in general, I'm trying to think. Oh, I was really sad because I finished Swamp Thing and there's no more Swamp Thing maybe ever, which I wish would change. Luckily they set it up. If you want to make more comics, you can do that in that universe. No, I'm joking. That's but no, I thought it was pretty good. It's a shame that it got canceled early and then people didn't want to watch it, because why would I watch a show that's never going to end or whatever?
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff, and it does make me a little sad. If you have access to it, I do recommend watching it. Again, like I said before, I'm super stoked about this Criterion Godzilla box. In video games, I've been playing Bloodstain Ritual of the Night, which is created by one of the creators of Symphony of the Night. I mean, any of those games have a huge team, so this one's pretty cool. It has a lot of interesting stuff in it. I can't think, other than that, that's been pretty much my nights. Music and whatever little bits I can watch in between. Today was the first day I had to kind of sit down and watch a bunch of stuff. So that's my endorsements. Not as much as possibly past episodes. There you go.
No, that's fabulous. Julia, I don't know. Is there anything that you would like to endorse?
Not really. I'm so shaken up by this, yet again, more mass shootings this weekend. So my endorsement, and I've done this in the past, is that people get involved, get off their asses, and go to your local politician's office and say, I demand that you do something about this, and whatever that may be. If you think it's, limiting the kinds of weapons people can get their hands on, or making sure there are background checks, or whatever limitation you are okay with, making sure that to tell people that you're not okay with hate speech, that you're not okay with, like speaking up about racism when you hear it, anything like that. And then for sure, find out about people's positions and vote and campaign and, go door to door, whatever you can do. That's my endorsement right now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Drew, what about you?
I wish I've been crazy busy the last week, so I haven't had much of a chance to really get into anything that I felt like was worth endorsing. I will say that I do have so a lot of people ask me when they're like, oh, I would like to read your comic books, but I don't know where to start, even though I do go out of my way to make everything as new reader friendly as possible. I understand like the drive to want to start at the quote unquote beginning. So next week on Comixology, I am putting for the first time on Comixology together. I'm putting out the collection Halloween Man Super Deformed, which has amazing artwork by Nicola Scott, who has become a very famous comic book artist since her time on Halloween Man, and David Baldeon, who is actually currently doing the Domino title with Gail Simone. This was some of their earlier work in the comic book industry, but it's also basically the best place to start with Halloween Man. It's got my preferred version of the origin story, and it sets up most of the characters. So that comes out on Comixology next Wednesday. Those of you who do read the comics in the collected form, here you go. If you've never read Halloween Man before, and the fact that the new series didn't start with an origin story, it just jumped right into stuff. Here you go. Here's your chance. Now you can be as boned up on all things Halloween Man as possible. This is my recommendation. If you absolutely positively need that, here's where you start. I'm excited to get it back out there. It's one of the first collections that we did do, and again, it's got beautiful artwork in it. So check it out next Wednesday on Comixology.
Very cool. I've been all over the place, and so I haven't finished anything. I've just started a bunch of stuff in the past week. I started reading Valley of the Dolls, which I had never read before, and so I'm so excited to be getting into it. I watched. We last week we talked about the new Tarantino film in our endorsements, and I went and watched it again. So basically, there's not much like new stuff that I've actually begun and finished this week that I can actually talk about. So I apologize about that. I will say that I just continue to be so amazed at Amazon Prime. Everybody loves Netflix, but Tony, you talk about this all the time. It just never fails. You turn that thing on, and it's always got something that is like a deep cut. It just blows my mind how much.
Netflix used to have some of that. It's long gone.
Yeah, it's all Prime
anything, now. They've rubbed any rough edge possible off of Netflix.
Yeah,
it is.
So if you want to see
to the point where
like random Italian shit, there it is. 7 Deaths in a Cat's Eye. Yes. Random Netflix, Saint movies. Yeah. No,
absolutely, man. I my weirdo recommend. I watched Red Pier, I think it was called recently.
Yeah.
Weird Japanese flick. Lots of bordering on like the kind of pinky violence kind of stuff. But just stuff like that. Netflix, its rectangles are now perfectly round. Is how like slick and just nothing. I mean, they have some Shaw Brothers stuff, but there is no just weird outside or anything. It feels like maybe there is. Yeah. Maybe it's hidden just more. But as far as Prime ever changes that and goes to where Netflix is now, it just I'm going to be so sad.
I feel like when I go to the Prime horror section, or the Netflix horror section, it's just a bunch of like bland sort of it's like stuff you would see at like Redbox. It's like filler stuff. Like
that's what I'm talking about.
None of it makes me want to.
Just a Redbox kind of deal. Like I have it because there's stuff I like on there. That's not to say I don't like the service.
Their new series are often quite good, by the way.
They put. Well, that's where I feel like they put their money in. Is they don't want to spend the money getting the licenses to interesting movies unless they're get relatively recent. But they're they put all their effort into their original series, and some of them are nice, and that's really the whole reason why I've kept the service. But when you're wanting to watch an older film of any kind, like Netflix has very little to do with that, and if you're wanting to watch like a vintage horror film of any kind, they don't really have anything anymore.
Yeah. Did I tell you guys about The Comeback? By the way, this is one that I discovered on Prime, and I know that now it sounds on this show like the show is just eavesdropping on us, just talking, and I apologize for that. The Comeback was on Prime, and it's about Jack Jones, the singer, and he basically he's divorced and he's unhappy, and so his agent says, "Why don't you go rent a castle in like 2 hours out of London and write your comeback album?" And he goes out there, and then there's a serial killer, and there's a big secret as to why, and it blows my mind. Jack Jones, the guy who sang the Love Boat theme, anyway, is our lead in this movie, and that I discovered on Prime. I think it was a rental, but still, there's just so much random crap. And if you're an artist, like all of us here consider ourselves artists, watching this stuff, much more than watching something new, you find things that inspire you because it's a wrinkle, a rhyme, a flavor that you haven't seen in a really long time, and it sets your mind working much more than watching whatever's new. Because nothing wrong with what's new, but that's somebody else has taken all of their inspirations and made something. So you have to go back to the well, and I mean Prime is just so fantastic for that. So whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we go.
By the way, like I said, Jason, you should check out Red Pier. It's from 1958. It's
all right. That's a good tip. Red Pier. Done, my friend. Absolutely. Okay. Well, that wraps up Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. We will be back next week. I will even, if you have listened all the way to here, I will even tell you what we are talking about next week. Next week is the one, the only Brides of Dracula. Brides of Dracula. We are returning to Hammer Horror. It has been a damn long time.
I believe that we have never done that. It's like stunning.
I cannot. It's unbelievable.
The Dracula movie with no Dracula in sight.
It's Dracula. He does show up in the opening credits, so whatever. But it doesn't matter. It is, if there is a world of forms, on which is in which exists the perfect Hammer movie, I would say that Brides of Dracula is probably it. Honestly,
we're sort of pre-gaming at this point.
Yes,
I really like that movie. I think it's Peter Cushing's probably best turn as Van Helsing. Right. Does it have Christopher Lee in it though?
It does not.
I don't know. We are definitely pre-gaming.
All right, you're right.
We'll save it for next week.
Cannot wait. Oh my gosh. Okay. And yeah, I got nothing else to say about any of this. I will see y'all later. Thank you everybody for all of your comments, and be excellent to one another, and we can't wait to talk to you again. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Godzilla, we love you every time.
Godzilla, we love you every time.
As my book says.